What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Military Cashflow. Now, today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very wonderful strategy and comparing it to a similar strategy where it's a hot topic of debate. What is the difference between delayed financing and a cash out refinance, also known as a BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat? Okay. Now, this is a very kind of debated topic, hot topic. A lot of people don't really understand the implications of one versus the other. So we're going to make sure that we lay it all out so you're very clear about how to use this strategy to best fit your needs. Before we do it, though, you already know what we need. Give us a couple of likes, hit the notification bell, and subscribe, because when we drop in these nuggets of wisdom, we want you guys to get it immediately, right? So without further ado, let's get to it. So what are these strategies? Very simply put, this is a way to take a certain lump sum of cash, right, to purchase a property, maybe add a little bit of love to it so we can raise that value and then pull that money back out. The purpose is so that we can recycle the same amount of money over and over again, right? That's the strategy. Now, what's the difference? There's going to be a difference in time, right? There's going to be a difference in how much we can pull out. There's going to be a difference in some of the things that we have to consider up front. So that's where we're going to get into it, okay? So let's talk about what this process looks like. The Berm Method, again, made very popular by Bigger Pockets, essentially lays out each phase of the entire process, right? So it starts off with the buy. You have to buy right. After you purchase the property, you move into the rehab portion. This is where you're essentially putting in sweat equity, right, to then create more value. Now, once you put in that sweat equity and you make this property look beautiful, the next phase is rent. Essentially, we want to go ahead and occupy that property to make sure that we have a long-term lease in place and showing that we're producing income. At that point in time, you now have a recently renovated property with a tenant in place producing cash flow. Now, for the lender's eyes, they're going to call this property stabilized. And now you can go ahead and do the next step, which is refinance. And when you go to refinance it, you're essentially just putting on a loan to that property. And since in theory, in this scenario, you've owned this property free and clear because you came in with all cash, essentially when you put that loan on, you take the proceeds of that loan and you put it right back into your pocket so you can turn around and do it all over again, okay? That is what the process looks like. So now, let's talk about the difference, the major difference between delayed finance and a BRRRR. Okay, here's the general rule of thumb. Understand this: when a lender looks to put a loan against a property, they are only going to put a certain amount of the overall value, okay? And this is a way that they get to hedge their risk. So for example, if a property is worth $100,000, a lender is not going to give you a $100,000 loan most of the time. There are certain situations, VA loan, USDA loan. Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a standard investment property, conventional loan, typically needs somewhere from 20 to sometimes 30% down payment, okay? Typically it's about 25%, and that's the general rule of thumb that we stick to when we're underwriting deals. Obviously, you need to know your lender very specifically, but for the sake of this video, let's stick with that. Okay, for a BRRRR, what they're going to say is, okay, 75% loan to value is going to be the max that they're willing to lend out. Okay, so we have to think about it. After we purchase and after we rehab, once we season this bad boy, right, we can pull out 75% of the future value, but we cannot exceed that. Fair enough? So let's do an example. We bought a property for $30,000. We put in renovations of $30,000. We're all in $60,000. After we go ahead and put a tenant in place and we season it for 6 months, the property is now worth $100,000. And it's good. It's stabilized. It's got that tenant in there. So now if the future value is $100,000, when we go to the lender, they say, hey, we'll give you 75% of that loan to the future value, $100,000, or $75,000. Now remember, how much were we all in? Only 60. So now when we get this money back, we've actually found a way to create $15,000, right? Now, obviously it's a loan and we're still paying back that loan. So don't get it twisted. It's not necessarily free money, but if you had only $60,000 in your pocket, you got that $60,000 back once you put the new loan on there, plus a little extra with the 15. It's now financed. Your tenant is paying that new mortgage of $75,000 and you got $75,000 in your pocket to go out and do it again. That is the BRRRR method, the cash out refi, the quintessential best way to invest, so to speak, right? Now, what's delayed financing? Now, delayed financing, plain and simply, is just that. You're just delaying the financing process. So without making it too complicated, let's say it's the same scenario. Let's say it's $30,000 to purchase, $30,000 to renovate. Now you're all in $60,000. The beautiful thing about delayed financing is there's no seasoning period. That's right. Cash out refi requires you to put a tenant in place and season it for a set amount of time. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. General rule of thumb is 6 months, but obviously you need to go to your specific lender to verify. But let's say it's 6 months, okay? That's for a cash out refi to pull out that extra equity. With delayed financing, you can do it right away. As soon as the renovation is complete on the property, you can order appraisal ASAP. That new appraiser is going to go out there, determine the value, go back to the lender and say, hey, it's good to go. It's now worth $100,000. So same scenario. You bought it for 30, you put 30,000 in renovations and it's worth 100,000. However, it's not seasoned. So the lender is going to say, okay, well, here's the difference. Since it's not seasoned, I don't know if it's really stabilized. I'll give you 75% of the future value of the property, or whatever is actually on your closing disclosure that you paid up front, whichever is less. That's the key. Whichever is less, okay? So in that same scenario, you've paid $30,000. You closed on the deal. You then put another $30,000 in for renovations. You're all in $60,000, but all you did was pay $30,000 to close on the deal. That's it. That's on the HUD. That's on the closing disclosure. Boom, the future value comes back. It's worth $100,000. 75% LTV means $75,000, but you're doing delay financing. They're going to look at it and they're going to see, hey, you only put $30,000 on the HUD, on the closing disclosure. So therefore, I'll give you $30,000 back. Now that's not bad, especially if you're only in 60, you got 50% of your money back. That's not bad. That's not bad, right? But you'd want to get more, wouldn't you? At least get that additional 30. So the trick, if you will, is how do you get the repairs on the HUD? That's where it's at. Now there's several different ways to do it. You can put the money in escrow. You can find a way to kind of prepay for the repairs. There's certain risk involved with that for sure. You want to make sure that you have a great relationship with your contractor, and it's very clear what the purpose of that money is for. But nonetheless, if you can get that portion of the creativity down, and you can have $60,000 on your closing disclosure, right? Same scenario, right? So now you got the cash out refi that requires a seasoning period, and you have delayed financing that requires no seasoning period, but they both show $60,000 on the HUD. Your decision point is says, hey, instead of waiting 6 months, I can wait 2 months, let's say 1 month for renovation and 1 month to refinance, and I can get my $60,000 back, or I wait an additional 4 months and get $15,000 more. Well, now that becomes a very interesting decision, right? Because 4 months for $15,000, maybe I can just go out and make that somewhere else, right? Maybe I get my $60,000 back and go out and do another deal. And now I've completed 2 delayed financings instead of waiting on 1 BRRRR, right? So it gets very creative at that point in time, right? So that's the importance of just understanding the difference. Now, there are many stipulations with delayed financing that we can get into in much more detail. Matter of fact, if you are interested in seeing another video on that, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. Believe me, I love talking about this stuff, so it's not going to hurt me. I'll dive into it deep. We'll talk about some of the lender restrictions, some of the things to consider. Might be a little bit longer video, but it will definitely go into the nuances of it. And we can do the same thing for the BRRRR strategy, really, if you'd like. But matter of fact, Nope, we won't. Why? Because we already got one. In the comments below, Dan Wynn covered the BRRRR strategy in depth. He actually did like a 2-part series of just diving into the BRRRR strategy. So if you guys want something similar, or even something just a little bit more detail on delayed financing, go ahead and drop it, guys. Let us know, and we'll go ahead and do that. No worries. The purpose of this video was to clearly delineate the difference between a BRRRR, cash out refi, and delayed financing. So you know exactly what you're saying or what you're asking for when you're talking to the lender. Last little bonus tip, guys, talk to the lender first. Don't just purchase a property and think that you're going to do either one of those strategies, because what happens when 6 months down the line, you're ready to get refinanced and the lender looks at you and says, I can't give you a loan. I don't really care how good the property looks. You're not credit worthy. I'm not going to give you a loan. That would suck, right? So definitely talk to the lender first. Make sure that you understand what your options are, and then you can go out there and execute. But that's it for today, guys. As always, if you liked it, again, man, go ahead, go for it. Likes up, thumbs up, boom, boom, subscribe, do all that good stuff, guys. Thanks so much for joining in. And until next time, this is Mike Glaspie signing off.